So we're gonna move to vote to approve the minutes. Helene, do you vote to approve the minutes?
I do.
Okay. Mike Falsetti,
Yes.
Chris Goffier,
Yes.
Meg McGrath-Smith, yes. Mary Moriarty?
Yes.
Okay, love it. Okay, so item number 2, this is a vote for the 23-24 officers with terms ending June 30th, 2024. I can only be the chair for 1 more year. So if I remained on as chair, this is my final year. And then I'd love to know, of course, if anyone else is interested in being chair, if they want to step up at this point. If that was the case, I would work with that person along the way. Regardless, I'm interested in staying on as chair now, but I'm also interested in working with somebody to kind of support them to become chair whenever I can't be. And then we also need to vote for a vice chair and also and then also a secretary.
Madam Chairman, if I may open the selection and the voting, I'd like to have you to continue as the chairperson. And I make a motion that Megan continue on as our chair.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Charge ahead.
Okay, we'll do a voice vote. Helene Busby,
Yes.
Michael Falsetti,
Yes.
Chris Goffier,
Yes.
Meg McGrath-Smith, yes. Mary Moriarty.
Yes.
Okay, and then are folks interested in, Mary, are you interested in continuing on as the secretary? And Mike, are you interested in staying on as vice chair, or is anyone else interested in being vice chair this year?
If it's the committee's will, certainly, as vice chair.
I nominate Mike Falsetti for vice chair.
Second.
Can we also add to the nomination? I'd like to also nominate Mary to remain as secretary.
I mean, unless somebody else wants to take it over, be my guest.
I second.
No. Not a chance.
Okay.
That was fast. Quick on the draw there. Okay, any further discussion?
No.
Okay, voice vote. Helene Busby. Sorry, roll call.
Yes to both. Yes to both.
Mike Falsetti,
Yes to both.
Chris Goffier,
Yes to both.
Meg McGrath-Smith, yes to both, and Mary Moriarty.
Yes to both.
Okay, awesome. Woo. All right, number 3. Amy, could you give us a brief update just overall the kind of work that you've been working on since we had our last meeting?
Sure.
Item number 3.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot on, trying to establish eligibility of the various forms we've received. It's still, been kind of complicated figuring that out and, hearing back, trying to get information from the city solicitor, which I can talk about later, and from Stuart Saganor and the applicants. I'm also, I process the requisition orders and invoices for ongoing projects. And then working on the budgeting portion with Daniel, the consultant, and also with the city auditor, as we've talked about before, and just, communicating with applicants. So that's my summary.
Really quickly, is there anything specific with budgeting that you're working on right now?
The main thing we're waiting for is for them to close the books for FY23 so that we know how much is actually in the CPA budget, actual cash, because that's how we can develop a projection to put in the new CPA proposed budget to City Council. So hopefully that happens soon. Also, the other thing we just did was the CP2 forms, which it's a required form to the Department of Revenue on different amounts that went into different categories for CPA projects, and that was not done for the last few years. So we had to talk to the auditor about that, and she is working on that now. So, because that is due at the end of this month.
Yeah, Michael, question?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, Amy, have you, in your travels and speaking with Stuart, is there any sense that the state of Massachusetts will give any more money to the CPA organizations throughout the state? Or is this what you have is what you're going to get, and there's going to be no more supplemental budgets, or no more? Do you any
Question.
sense from Stuart in your discussions?
You know what? I know that he does send that mass email out about the state match and supplemental funds to all of you. And I don't remember the last thing he said. I would have to look back on that.
Okay.
So I don't know.
The last communication was just last year. They did come up, with a supplemental budget that greatly increased the CPA match. Hasn't happened this year, but that's also what happened last year. Hoping it happens again. I think from their end too, the coalition is sending that out because they're hoping that there will be pressure from the public, right? They're hoping to sort of hear people reach out to different representatives to push, hey, yes, we think this should be in the supplemental budget.
And those
but I
people
also think
could
that
be members of this very committee. Sorry, I just had to put that in.
100%. Yeah. But I also think that another key part of the budget this cycle, which has not been a part of the cycle in a while, has just been tax relief. So the fact that they expanded the income credit, all this stuff, right? Like that was a huge part of this budget. So we're not sure that there will be a supplemental budget for CPA. It may be that the choice this time around was like, we're gonna, kind of distribute more tax relief. Okay, good question. Let's move on to 4, some brief updates on past projects. Okay, so MIFA murals, still waiting effectively. We've had a little bit of back and forth. Don Sanders has said he will reach back out to the restorer to get more information. Haven't seen photographs yet, and still waiting just on any kind of update. I think we have some invoices for some work, but we haven't really gotten a response yet that we're waiting for to understand our next step as a committee. The Jones Point master plan for the park, I made a flyer that I'm going to show. Can everyone see the flyer on my screen?
Yeah, we see it now.
Yes.
Okay. So, and this was a picture that I just took a few days ago, and I went down there and people were playing tennis. Just lovely to see people out and about using the amenities. The tennis courts are really beautiful there. So I made this flyer to encourage folks to be a part of the process, right? We really want public voice. So I wrote, CPA funds will be used this fall to create a master plan of Jones Point Park to stage out future work. How do you want to see this area designed and used? 2 public meetings will create space for the community's voice to be heard. Public meetings are going to be at the Ian White School Library from 5:30 to 6:30. The first info session on October 25th, which is coming up fast, is very much designed as a listening session, so that the folks from the design firm, who is Time Bond, will be able to listen as the public explains, here's what we want, right? And then they will draft plans based on that, bring them to a second public meeting November 15th, where folks will get to weigh in on the possible draft plans, and they'll give them different options. Like, would you like A, B, or C? Which one, kind of suits most what you're looking for? And then depending on that sort of conversation, if it seems like it's coalescing really easily around something, then they'll be able to sort of move forward. Otherwise, we might schedule a third meeting where they then present sort of here's what we think the final plan is. Now give us feedback again. And of course, they're trying to do this in a manner that it will line up with our CPA application schedule, because they've put an eligibility application in to stage out the first part of work for this spring or this summer. Okay. And a thank you to Mary Moriarty, who walked around and papered a number of streets around the park earlier this week. I think it's really important that we put it out there on social media. So the Parks and Rec department started doing that today. But also not everyone's on social media. So I will make sure that I put a press release out to the various news outlets like the Sun and the Reminder and the Gazette, right? Part of the issue with communication in Holyoke is you really have to get it out wide because there's no one source that everyone knows they can turn to and read. So you have to sort of put it in as many places as possible. And then hopefully enough people are really getting the message. But there's really nothing better than being able to kind of go door to door too. So in the neighborhoods around the park, Mary's distributed the flyer on a bunch of streets, and Michael Falsetti has volunteered to do some more streets. And I also have one laminated that we're going to put by the park itself, so that as folks are coming into the park, they'll be able to see the sign. So I think we're just doing our due diligence to make sure that we're getting communication out there. Because I think in the, the feeling is if we're going to be designing a master plan, it's really important that the public's weighing in. Okay, Pulaski Park Wall Restoration Study. I think we're just sort of in a bit of a weird spot here because we're waiting for us to have a clear point person. And the last information I had was from September 15th, when they said the point person hasn't been quite determined yet, but engineers were moving forward from the company that they'd hired to do the coring. And that they would be notifying Carl Rossi, who is the DPW head, and Veolia staff of the activities. But that's the last I've heard. I'll reach back out to Carl Rossi and see, has that in fact happened? Are they communicating with him? And who is the point person while we're sort of waiting for that transition? I don't believe that we've hired a new city engineer yet, so we're sort of in flux. Okay. The Wright Block project. Amy, do you want to share what's been happening with the PR?
I just know that the last word I got from Bill Wolmildorf was that they are going to take care of circulating that. They just had to fix up the signature pages to align with the previous restrictions that we've done. And so they're going to make sure that, the members of the Holyoke Historic Commission and that the city solicitor will be the notary for that. You're muted, Chris, in case you were going to say something.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the update.
Oh,
I wanted continuity, again, since this is going to be our second restriction, just to have formality from here on out. Hope that's okay.
Yeah. And then the next one is Wistariahurst. So there's a bit of a scope of work change that they would like us to bring to city council. Amy, do you want me to walk through the trellis request, or do you want to walk through that?
Well, I did just print out what Megan wrote out. I could read that if you want. It's like 3 paragraphs or
yeah, I think that makes sense, and then I can screen share the picture.
Okay, yeah, great. So so this was recommended by the architect, but she explains it well. This is in relation to the Pine Street porch restoration grant that they've already received an award for. Per the grant, Wistariahurst hired the historic architect Steve Jablonski to help with the execution of this project. Upon his inspection, his first recommendation was to get the wisteria vines off the house. Jablonski noted the current trellis showed significant condition issues. Currently, it is being pulled off the house by the vines and is bending. Not only is the trellis failing, but the vines themselves are causing the rot, and their growth is pulling down the porch. The wood is unable to dry out because the vines block the sun, and then the wet wood sustains more damage as it stays wet, and the weight and pull of the vines cause more damage. His first recommendation was that in order to properly preserve the porch, the vines needed a new, stronger trellis to support the vines and get them off the house. Jablonski worked up a plan for the trellis using galvanized steel that would be powder painted and cured to last 50 or more years, which could get the vines off the house but still have a similar visual appearance. He then sent the plans and discussed the issue with Mass Historic's Paul Holtz, who agreed with Jablonski's assessment for long-term preservation. The vines should be off the house. Holtz also approved the design for the trellis. Steve Jablonski asked a couple of fabricators about the trellis design and thinks both the rotted wood beam and columns, as well as the trellis, can be completed for the already approved budget. Wistariahurst hopes to get this work completed before snowfall, as the added weight and dampness could increase the damaged area.
Good idea.
Okay, so I want to show this image of the work so you can sort of see the schematic that they have here. So you can see where the existing shrubs are and vines are along the house. And then you can see where they're suggesting placing these kind of new concrete footings for the trellis and then the tubes up. That's on, of course, like a top-down view. And this would be like the front view.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of work.
Yep. Now, Amy, which application would this be tied to? Because we had two from them last year. We had the exterior painting and repairs project, but then we also had the restoration of damaged porch structures.
Yeah, that's the one, the restoration of damaged porch structures. That's what this is all about. That's how it came out because they, as part of that project, they had this architect review, you know, what should be done. And so this is what they just, you know, found.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because, of course, the issue ran into, of course, was scope of work, because although we have two contracts with them, one contract says they can use it to repair exterior structures and repair, you know, respond to damage, and the other one is really specific to the porch.
Right.
And so because the damaged porch structures contract is where the money is left to do this work, but the contract scope of work doesn't align with what they want to do. We believe we have to go back to the city council in order to ask them to allow us to do this. The project description currently for this contract says it's for the restoration and replacement of damaged and rotted structural columns and beam on the covered porch for the Pine Street facing entrance to the main house building. So it's just a little too specific to then allow for trellises to be built and installed. Does that make sense?
Well, maybe implied, Madam Chairman. I mean, it's Amy, that was $284,000. Was that it off the top of my head?
No, this is 95,000.
Oh,
But
you mean the damaged porch structures? This
Yeah.
was 135.
Oh, the original, oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. You're right. Okay. So
Just because there's two, it's easy to, you know.
Yeah.
get confused.
it is 135,000. Yeah.
I think it's an easy piece to go to city council. I also think that I want us to be more thoughtful about how we draft contracts in the future, because, you know, the next conversation is going to be with the carousel. I just think we have to find a way to put some clause in there that some language that says, and other related work that is uncovered during the process of this project that is approved by the committee. Because I think this keeps happening where we keep, like, it's good work. It's good, something good they want to do, but we can't just say, yes, it's not the contract and it's not what the city council approved. And so we have to go back to the city council, and it makes such an onerous process. So I just want to think about how we do contracts in the future. And if there's a term that we can add that gives us more capacity to respond when something is just uncovered in the middle of a project that needs to get done, that's related.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chairman, you raise a good point. Emergency conditions that are discovered upon restoring a certain structure that we vote on, and we discover it, not knowing what it was there. At least, as you suggested, it leaves us open to say, yes, we've got money to do it. You discovered it. There's something rotting there. It's got to be replaced right away or rather quickly, rather than going through this whole process again. Yes, a phrase or something we could work out that would allow us to do that, because that happens when you do preservation work. You discover things you didn't see. It goes on all the time.
Right.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So I think it's just we're still tightening up our processes and our policies, and I think that especially for someone that comes to us where they've done their due diligence and been able to come in under budget, but then something else is like really important and related. I just think that we should have the flexibility to respond. So in this case, I do think we need to vote to bring a scope of work change to city council, so that we can ask for the remaining funds that were already promised to the applicant to be able to be used for the work concerning the trellis, so that we can prevent the building from being further damaged in the future.
So moved.
Wait a minute.
Hey, Mary, yes, question?
So how much money are we talking about, and how much, so 135,000 is what we had, you know, said that they could have for the repairs of the porch. How much is it gonna cost to repair the porch, and how much is it gonna cost for the trellis? I mean, it's great to want to change the scope, but I mean, what about the money? How do you know how much is going where?
Yep. Amy, do you have that right in front of you, or do you want me to pull it up?
I'm pulling this up now. I mean, I know it's within the budget, and you know, as I see this, this is part of the porch repair, even though it's true that we didn't have that, and I agree that would be good to add that extra sentence, but I'm just looking right now, okay. And at this point, they've only put in one invoice, which was 6,840. So there's plenty of funds, you know, there's 128,160 left, you know. So certainly enough, I would think, to cover this.
Okay.
But I mean,
Thank you.
some of that money probably goes to repairing the actual structures beyond the trellis too.
Do we need to confirm that, or is there any benefit to going to Wistariahurst to say, you know, we're putting this in at that amount, but then if there's an extra amount associated with building this iron trellis, then they'd have to come back and get another approval for more money. And so
No, it's definitely within the budget. I just saw the email where she said that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, this was across so many different emails as we were trying to tease it out, that I'm actually going back through now, and I can't find it like right at my fingertips. But I'll keep looking for it during our conversation, and if I find it, then I will definitely share it out, even if it's a bit out of order.
So I'm sorry, Michael, did you make a motion to approve it? What
Yes.
was the motion?
I made a motion for the committee to vote on it, but yes, I approve it. I'd like to make a motion. We approve the work to be done to the porch. It's got to be done. I mean, preferably before it snows. Yeah, I couldn't agree with it more. Sometimes things happen. So yes, Mary, I make a proposal that we approve it.
Thank you. I second.
Any further discussion?
No.
I just want to, can I just
I have
mention?
the amount.
Oh.
So the amount was it was around $30,000
Okay.
is what the director of Wistariahurst just messaged me. And it would be within the original grant total. Okay, let's move to a roll call vote. Helene Busby,
Yes.
Mike Falsetti,
Yes.
Chris Gothier,
Yes.
Meg McGrath Smith, yes. Mary Moriarty,
Yes.
okay. Awesome. Okay, the next one that we're going to be talking about is, well, actually, no, it's actually a new project, so I'll keep moving. Unless you have something else you wanted to add, Amy, but another project?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention the good news that, you know, as you probably saw from the email from Meg, that the Miracle League Playground is complete. And we've submitted their last invoice. So that's really exciting. I don't know if anyone got to see it.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
It was a super fun event. I think there had to be over 100 kids. It was just super busy, very joyful. Thank you to Helene and Mary and other folks for helping at the paint table. We had a bunch of rocks and paint, and kids painted them, and then we arranged them into a rock snake in front of the Highland Wall. It was super fun. And definitely one of those like proud moments, both as a resident of the city and also just as a chair of the CPA. Felt really proud of it. It's good work.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
congratulations. Yes.
Okay, communication updates, number 5. So some really good news, which is that the CPA injunction was struck down by the judge. They ruled that the mayor did have the right to veto the ballot question and place it on a different election if he so chooses, effectively killing the ballot question for this cycle. The response from some city councilors was then to launch into a discussion of if they could vote now to put it on for the election in 2 years. And they're going to have to go through that whole process, and we'll see where that goes. But I also think that it is important that if the people are getting to voice their thoughts around CPA, that it's a year where we're going to have a solid percentage of people voting. So I think that it's a good thing. Even if it does end up on the ballot in the future, I think it's a good thing if more people have their voice on that question than less. The finance committee request. So there was a finance committee order asking for the legal department to review all of the restrictions that we have done. So like conservation restrictions, preservation restrictions, affordable housing restrictions, as well as some of the covenants and grant agreements that we have, like user agreements that we have. For example, the one with the Boys and Girls Club that says that, yes, whenever they're not directly using it for their kids programming, it is open to the public, right? That sort of thing to make sure that we're protecting the public benefit. And the response from our end, Amy worked hard to make the database, just saying like, here are all the documents, and they're always reviewed by the appropriate authority, right? Whether that is someone at the Mass Department of Conservation, right? Or whether that is like whatever the right regulatory body is, we are always getting feedback and making sure that we are following the right procedures. So we shared that document with them, and hopefully that gives them the assurance that we are doing our due diligence. And I think that we do take it really seriously, and hopefully that they see that looking at the database. But we did respond to that request and give them the information. And thank you to Amy for putting it together, because it was not easy to sort of figure out like how to take information that we had in different places and making sure it was something that was easy for them to kind of look at just the information they had requested. Yes, Mary, question?
So you made the database information available to the finance committee or to the law department?
The city, the solicitor that was our liaison to CPA, Kathy Degnan, has always had access to our full database.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Because they have access to all of our eligibility applications, right? Like we make sure that they have access to anything, because they often are reviewing things all the way up. And certainly Amy's been doing that work with Kathy Duggan and sort of kind of nudging along and trying to make sure that we're getting things reviewed and looked at already. But I also think that, it's not always the legal department that is doing the kind of final review, because there's other regulatory bodies. So we just sort of put the database together so they can see that we're doing our due diligence. Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions about any of that before we move to item 6?
No.
Okay. FY24 projects eligibility review. So just quickly reviewing the eligibility applications that came in after our 9/13 meeting, because we were able to look at those, but not the ones that came in after. And then sort of sharing anything that's changed as the eligibility applications have been sort of looked at. I will tell you that a bunch came in afterwards if you haven't looked at the document. Okay. So last time we met, we talked about the stained glass windows restoration phase 5. They put it in for $200,000, which is way higher than we've ever seen before. It's also because they're trying to push to be done with that project. Similarly, I think we could respond and say yes, and also we'll need to phase it out more, right? But this was their request that we do all of it. The NX entry pillars we talked about, the City Hall granite stair restoration we spoke about, the Wistariahurst retaining wall, which has been sort of a bit of a morass. It keeps coming back up and up, and they haven't been able to figure out what to do with it. And then we discussed the World War II monument, the Veterans Grave preservation. And then there's also 2 others that have come in, the Parks and Rec plaques restoration. This is for 3 plaques in city parks. There's one in the Korean War Memorial, one at John Mackenzie, and then one at Veterans Park for John Mackenzie and James Athas, and then another one at Mackenzie Stadium. Sorry, Amy, I don't know if I read that out loud, but I think without commas, it was hard to follow exactly what was what there.
Which one are you looking at? I can't, on my screen, I have a tiny laptop, so I have to look at my own. I'll look at my own, but if you just say which one you're talking about.
What are the 3 plaques that are being restored for Parks and Rec?
Okay, yeah, the 3 plaques. Yeah, so that's a little confusing because that's from Parks and Rec. Tom Reynolds submitted that, and there's the Korean War Memorial plaque, which is eligible. It's on the state register, definitely historic. And then there are 2 other ones, which are in a stadium. I have to look back to find it myself. I'll just open this up.
It says Mackenzie Stadium.
Yeah, Mackenzie Stadium, right. And actually, I think I have a summary of what they are. Let's see. Yeah, John Mackenzie and James Athas Street plaques. I guess it's, yeah. So he was asking, Tom was asking, should he submit those 2 other plaques under a different category, like recreation, rather than historic, since they're not on the historic register, or in a local historic district, so they'd have to be deemed historically significant by the Holyoke Historic Commission to fall under that. So, I mean,
Why not just have them all underneath Parks and Rec if it's signage?
Because the Korean, well, maybe, but he did submit them under historic. That's how he did it, and we do know that the Korean War Memorial plaque is eligible. I mean, it appears eligible. I didn't get any word from. I'm still waiting for Kathy Degnan, the attorney Degnan, to respond on reviewing these, and I've sent her more information. But yeah, I mean, my thought was, well, the Korean War Memorial plaque seems pretty clearly like it would be eligible under historic. And then it's a historic resource. It's on the state register. The other 2, it seems like we need more information, not only about what category it would be, but also what the work involves to make sure it's eligible. Because if it's just cleaning or a maintenance type thing, then it would not be. So yeah, I was kind of supposed to have heard already from the city solicitor, but I guess they're very backed up with other work for the city. So I only heard back from her on 2 of the 2 projects, which I can share about.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Thought I was just going back, and unfortunately I did it. And then the next one is the Holyoke merry-go-round. An emergency application came in so that we would take it out of cycle. This is in response to what we spoke to Susan Leary about. I think it was either last meeting or the meeting before. And this is so that we can complete the half of the stirrups that currently they don't have the funding to complete, that are required in order for them to be up to code for state inspection. And
I just add to that last one.
The stirrups, or you're going back to the plaques?
Because we just got an email from Susan Leary. It's pretty complicated, but basically the upshot is.
Too.
Oh, she is? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe she would like to talk then, because I think that she wants to request 14,525.
Yeah, I don't know where I messed up. I know where I messed up, but I don't know how. At 11 o'clock last night, I realized instead of saying that we paid 375, I cut it down to 14,000. So there's a $375 problem with the application. I can fix it, but I didn't want to do it after we had already sent it to you because I didn't think, you know, I mean, I don't
So
know.
is it
I didn't know.
higher or lower?
It should be lower. I should be asking for $14,575 with signage, with money for signage.
Okay.
575?
Yes.
Okay, because I thought your email said 525, so it's just
Let
want to
me-
make sure.
I was doing that at 11 o'clock last night. I apologize if I did that wrong too.
No, no
Um,
worries.
So Sue, we can't vote on it tonight because it wasn't on the agenda, and in order for us to be able to vote on it, it has to be on the agenda. But I
Okay.
can promise you that it will be on the next meeting agenda, and then we can vote on the emergency application.
Okay, and I can fix the numbers so that you've got them perfect instead of me telling you on the meeting what the numbers are.
Okay. And anything else you want us to know while you're here? Thank you for coming in. That's so kind.
We thank you for inviting us and for doing all this for us. We will be having a and we have a name for it, but I can't think of it at the top of my tip of my tongue. But a landslide night, our actual 30th anniversary is December 7th. So for various reasons, we had to push the fundraiser aside that we were going to have next weekend, and we are going to be having a VIP night at the fundraiser at the merry-go-round on December 7th. I will be getting you some formal invitations. If you would like to come, we would love to have any of you. We're going to have it open to the public on Sunday, the 9th. We'll be doing a landslide ride that day too, but just so you know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else from the committee before Sue hops off?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you
Okay,
so
I'll
much.
go work. I'll have it ready right now and then I'll resend it to you so you'll have it tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the other piece is when we go back and look at open space and recreation, we still have the YMCA that we've talked about last time. It's the same infant and toddler recreation space that we've talked about a few times over the years. We have the Jones Point Park Phase 1 rehab that we talked about last time. And then there's 3 from the Holyoke Canoe Club. Have any of those been found to be eligible, Amy, or are all of those not eligible?
All right, sorry, I had it in my mind that I was going to share with you the ones I know I have heard from Kathy about, but can you just, which category are you talking about? Open and rec space?
Yep, so right here, open and
Yeah, okay.
open
Yeah, I
rec
can't really
space.
see that, so I have to look at my own.
Okay, my
no,
question was about the 3 canoe club projects. Are
Yeah.
any of them eligible, Amy?
There's
we don't
no
know.
more
It's okay.
information from Kathy from last time on any of this. She did not get back to me on it. So it's the same information she had said about the toddler playground. She was not sure. She would reply soon. About Jones Point Park Phase, likely so. She would reply soon. About the Holyoke Canoe Club, unlikely. She thinks it's probably not eligible. This is well, actually, she wasn't sure about this. She wanted to really review it. So scratch that from the record because that was just she needs to review that further. She didn't get back to me on it, unfortunately. So I really don't have anything that she got back to me in this category on, including, but she does say, as before, I already said that no, the infrastructure of the electrical system is definitely not, because that's not a recreational use thing, as Stuart Saganor said. So that one is definitely not eligible. And the safety project is not eligible. She already said that.
Right. So these 2, row 5 and 6 are not eligible, but 4 may be. But also it'd be a little tricky in that they would have to be okay with public access. And so that's a kind of a question for the applicant is, are they willing to expand access to their dock for any member of the public, even if they're not a member of the club, if the CPA funds the dock, right? So that's a question for the applicant, because of course we can't move forward if there's no public access for taxpayer funding.
And can I
Yep.
just add something about that one? There's another issue with that, that they mostly have motorboats apparently, and this is not really in keeping with CPA, the motorboats, because it is kind of, even though it's recreational land, it's still supposed to be sort of within the idea of conservation land, and motorboats are not within that. So I have some emails with Stuart where he pointed that out. So just to mention that as well.
Hmm.
Because if you look at the actual legislation, it's written that way. Recreational land is kind of written under conservation land.
Yeah, I think there's also a piece too around them wanting, because it's about access, right? They
Yeah,
want
that's the main
for
thing.
for recreation that any member of the public could reasonably have access to, versus the use of a dock for boats when only certain members of the public would own a boat.
Mm.
Okay, housing. So we have 2 housing applications that have come in. One from what we've looked at before, the Appleton Mill redevelopment. And that's for $300,000 for turning the Far Alpaca Mill into 88 units of housing. And this would be a real mix, right? So 12 units would be reserved for households below 30% AMI, 63 affordable to households at 60%, and 13 units affordable to households at 80% AMI. So a mix of sort of grades of affordability. And then Library Commons 2. So this is Wayfinders who came and presented to us at the last meeting and were sort of asking us questions and explaining that they, of course, are seeing that as, we gave them $50,000, 2 cycles ago. And yet, due to kind of still being in different various grant cycles and waiting for funding to sort of coalesce, and with inflation the way that it is, they now have a financing gap that they're trying to fix in order to move forward. So they requested another $250,000. So, I mean, certainly if you're doing the math, right, if right, in terms of, what people are asking for, we have a lot of asks. So it's certainly going to be, even once that number goes down a little bit, once some not eligible projects get pulled out, we'll certainly have some tough choices to make this year on our committee, because a lot of these projects, by and large, are great projects. And so it's going to take a lot of prioritization and balancing the boat, to use the rubric and the scoring guide to make choices, and then make sure that we're balancing different types of projects.
I do have some news, if it's okay for me to share, about the Appleton Mills.
Sure.
That, I did get an email just today from Attorney Degnan saying that she does believe that one is eligible. And because of just looking at the CPA legislation on affordable housing, she says that it is. I can tell you exactly what she said. Let's see. It's eligible, particularly since it meets the criteria of MGL Chapter 44B, Section 5, Paragraph 2, which states that the committee shall recommend reuse of existing buildings.
Mhm.
Any questions about any of the eligibility applications?
And did we, there was something she also responded to about one of the historic ones.
Mm-hmm.
That is that she does believe that the veteran grave one is eligible. She said, since the work will include more than cleaning, i.e. repairing headstones and working on the engraving of the names so that people will know where their loved ones are buried, I think that the Veterans Grave Preservation Project is eligible.
The only thing I questioned about that email is that she didn't address the supplanting issue.
That's true, you're right.
And so until she has said no, even though the state says that we're supposed to put aside money for this work, if we do it with CPA, it's not supplanting. Like, I do think that we need her to rule on that, to look at that. So I don't think we can say it's eligible until we have that.
Okay, that's true.
I want it to be eligible. But I do need her to say that it's not supplanting. for it to be eligible. Okay, all right, so if no questions, then we're gonna move to 7. Explanation and clarification of physical additions on historical monuments. Mike, do you want to take it away?
Yes, Madam Chairman and fellow committee members, what I did was, as a result of looking at the World War II memorial and the iron gate that goes around it, I wanted to get a further clarification, not just for that project, but what is the official Department of the Interior's opinion on projects going forward in the future? If we have more of these that may arise, how does one conclude what belongs and what doesn't? And this is based upon my conversations I had with Dennis Montague from the Philadelphia office of the Department of the Interior. I sent him an email and I sent him pictures of the World War II monument and the iron gate around it. He said it is eligible, it is part of the monument, and it's based on a premise it's based on a fact that Department of the Interior lives by. Monuments aren't static. People add to them. They add wading pools, they add flowers, they add columns, they add cupolas, they add things to the monument. It adds to the monument experience. And so that iron gate around the World War II memorial is eligible as part of being part of the monument. But how do we decide which way do we go? And as he pointed out, it's a local decision. If our committee says, well, that's fine, it's all well and good that it's part of the monument, but we don't want to fund it, fine, we don't fund it. But to dismiss it because it wasn't there when the monument was erected is not lawful. It's considered part of the monument, and therefore it is eligible. Now, whether we vote to fund it or not is another matter. But as we go forward, as folks come along with projects, whatever they may be in the future, that yes, you can add to a monument something that's part of the monument, a wading pool, flowers, columns, cupolas, seating arrangements, steps, whatever the case may be, they become part of the monument. Monuments aren't static. So therefore, this gate is in fact part of the monument. Now, whether you agree to vote it to fund it or not is another matter. But I wanted to make it clear both for this project, the gate, and for 5 years from now, whatever, that they are considered part of the monument. This is from the Department of the Interior. I just wanted to bring that up to clarify it. Now, there may be other reasons not to fund the gate, which is perfectly fine, but the gate is considered part of the monument. So I just wanted so going forward, just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that reminds me of, remember the building that it didn't end up moving forward, but the one it was 43 North Canal Street, and it had a stucco exterior, but at one point it had been brick. And we had talked back and forth around, like, are we allowed to, to support this as a historic preservation project when, right, it's like so fundamentally been altered. And then when we looked at the interior standards, the Department of the Interior standards, effectively they said, like, well, I think buildings change over time and you can choose to restore something or preserve it based on where it has been, right? Even with its, additions, it doesn't have to be like, pristinely returned back, and that's not even advisable or possible in most cases. So that rings true to me, Mike. It does.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair?
It rings true to me. Yeah, like I appreciate you doing that legwork.
Yeah, and this is from the department. Oh, go ahead.
I think the question with the fencing that we're gonna have here is the city solicitor's question around it being potentially maintenance, because that's been something the city council has been concerned about. And I think it depends on what she says on maintenance, but if it's ruled as being restoration, not maintenance, then I think that it could be potentially eligible.
No, that's fine. The maintenance and preservation is another question, but they answered the question to say that the Department of Interior considers it as a cupola, a wading pool, flowers, steps, additions to an historical, that's eligible.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thank you for doing the work on that. Amira, you have a question? Your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Mike, is it in emails so that you could forward the information to Kathy Degnan or to whoever might be making the decision? You know,
Um,
is it, I'm just wondering if there's any documentation of it, or was it just a phone call?
Well, it was I sent, Mary, I sent an email to them with pictures of the World War II monument with the gate. And I said, we're discussing whether this is eligible to be funded as a historic restoration, because is this part of the monument or not? But then we had several conversations over the phone, and he explained to me, basically the premise is monuments aren't static. The Department of Interior considers them cupolas, wading pools, flower gardens, benches, steps. It can be added to a monument and they become part of the monument. I don't have it in writing because it was just a verbal, he just said, when he said monuments aren't static, that pretty much summed it up. So Mary, I don't have a letter or an email to confirm what he said. When he said that, I said, all right, well, that's what we wanted to find out. So now, and going on in the future, if these projects come up, we know that, yes, the Department of Interior agrees that you can add things to a monument. Mary, I don't have an email. It's a verbal.
Can I just
over the phone.
add something to this discussion?
Sure, and then I want to move on.
Yeah, just quickly, yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, Mike, and that you know, and historic resources in general aren't static. But to be eligible, this would, you know, the maintenance issue aside, if it was not a matter of that, this is viewed as maintenance, because the fence itself is not on the state register or included in what's in the state register, it would still have to be voted as historically significant to the city of Holyoke by the Historic Commission. That's just the CPA legislation, since it's not on the state register or on the in a local historic district. So if they've said, yes, it is historically significant to, you know, as part of that monument, like you're saying, then yeah.
Well, it's a local decision. As Dennis pointed out, the Department of Interior says it is part of the monument. Now, whether the local folks locally agree to fund it or not is another question. But I just want to put the baby to bed that you can have modifications to monuments, additions to monuments, and they become part of the monument. Now, whether you elect to fund it or not, it's another matter. I just wanted to get that premise out there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Okay, I think that gets us to other, and for other, I just want to quickly go over some dates for meetings that are upcoming. Christopher, do you have the date of the Historic Commission meeting where applicants are going to be presenting to you?
That will be the November. Bear with me. November 13th.
The 13th.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you say November 13th?
Yes.
Okay.
And so in terms of timeline here, I know, Amy, that you're, you know, kind of working on some information that we still want to get to Degnan, but I also know that we really do need to tell applicants next week.
Yes. Yes.
If they're eligible or they won't have enough time to be ready, because if we tell them next week, that gives them 4 weeks. And so I think we're gonna have to move forward. I think that we reach out to Kathy Degnan again. I can call again tomorrow and just make clear that we need feedback on the last remaining pieces as soon as possible. And I think if you could start notifying people now that we already know are eligible, and then just give them as much time as possible to get started. And I think, you know, by the 16th, if we have a few people that we're still waiting on, I think it's okay to send them in an email just saying, just so you know, we're just gonna give it a couple more days. We're waiting to hear back on the city solicitor about your project, just so they have a communication and they know, like, we're working on eligibility. We just haven't quite gotten it settled for your project yet.
Sense.
Does that make sense, Amy?
Yes. Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. And then our next meeting will be November 8th. Does that sound right? That would be the second Tuesday.
Yes.
Wednesday.
Yes, sorry. Yes, the second Wednesday would be the 8th. And then our next meeting would be December 13th, when we would be able to review the reports that the consultant's going to draft from that historic consultant meeting. And then in January, we'll have those two CPA meetings that we discussed prior. And we'll clarify those dates in January, the next meeting too, because anyone that we're telling to do a full application, we also have to tell them when the dates are that they'll be presenting. So they have plenty of time to put it on their calendar and prepare to be available.
Can you repeat the dates in December, please?
So December 13th is our CPA meeting, and we'll make sure that we're reviewing the reports from the Historic Commission meeting on that day.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Anything else? Did we do the meeting in an hour? Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
Loving
I
it. Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Look at it.
We all second it.
Whatever time we're
Bye,
at.
everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
All right, guys.